Welcome to Subscription Prescription, the podcast where you get the information you need to scale your subscription program.
Hello and welcome to another dose of Subscription Prescription. This is the podcast where we help you figure out everything related to D2C subscriptions. I'm your host, Matthew Holman, and this week's episode is going to be one of our last ones of the year. And so because of that, this episode is all about why you don't really have a subscription. Now, as we get into this topic, I really kind of want to unpack why subscriptions are so appealing and some of the instances where they really don't make a lot of sense and what you should be doing instead. The reason I'm doing this is because I do get asked a lot. I do have a lot of conversation with brands that are launching subscriptions that are wondering if they should be doing a subscription. They might even have a really great subscription product, but they're struggling to make subscriptions work. So we're going to be unpacking all of the things that make subscriptions work, that make them hard, and when you should be making the decision to be prioritizing subscriptions or other parts of your business. Now, when we talk about subscriptions are really appealing, right? They're predictable revenue. They allow us to create some element of understanding how much revenue we're going to have in the future. And if you've ever looked at shopping your business, potentially selling, then I'm sure potential buyers are really, really interested into your LTV, the LTV that you have for your customers. And LTV is often synonymous with subscriptions. The problem with this kind of take, though, is that we're looking at your business from a finance standpoint. And an ideal scenario is building up predictable revenue, right? And a lot of people that will be evaluating your business are often evaluating SaaS companies, service-based companies. They really want to understand what your repeat purchase rates and your subscribers look like. The problem is that it doesn't always make sense to grow a business this way, and that you can actually still have a really healthy and repeatable business without subscriptions. So when we're talking about subscriptions, I want to define that a subscription is just a mechanism for someone to purchase again from you. So instead of somebody that buys and they come back when they run out, or they come back when they see an email, or they come back when they see an ad, subscriptions essentially lock somebody into a purchase behavior that allows them to get the product as often as they need it, and you get a customer that's now paying you over time. Now, generally, when we look at repeat purchase rates versus subscriptions, we see higher lifetime value, or LTV, with subscriptions than we do with repeat purchase rates. That's because if you lock somebody into a 30-month subscription, that person is going to be purchasing more frequently than somebody who might be just repurchasing when they run out of something, even if it's the same product, because there's going to be some delays. Maybe they don't order it quite as fast. The subscription's kind of like a preset timing. The problem is that subscriptions don't live in a vacuum, right? We have to think about how people actually want to purchase our product, okay? Now, earlier this year, we had an amazing guest on the podcast, Shireen Obear, who formerly was the head of growth at Bobby, a formula brand. And one of the things she talked about was understanding, they did a lot of research to understand how women were purchasing formula. And so whereas a normal, say, general subscription advice might be, hey, we want to prioritize first order subscription, at Bobby, they found that that was a really, really large impediment to purchases, because the biggest thing around purchasing formula was if the baby would actually take it, right? It was no guarantee that the baby would actually like the formula and accept the formula. There was a good chance that they wouldn't. So they created a mechanism where they could offer test samples or sample sizes so that people could try it. And when they did, they could get opted into a subscription or give them a compelling subscription offer. They created a subscription life cycle around the customer and how they were buying. Now, similarly, when we look at other products, sometimes it makes more sense to enable large bulk purchases. So really common, a fun, obvious play for subscriptions is in skincare space. Now, I had a friend who was running a skincare brand for a long time, and as they had grown, they were just running quarterly specials. They were doing really big sales every 3 months, and that people would then just wait for those to buy 3 to 6 months worth of their skincare supply. And so a subscription didn't really make sense for them because of the way they had been training people to buy, but the way that people were buying from them. And there are a lot of other beauty and skincare brands that operate in a similar way. Hey, I might use my mascara at a different rate than you do, or the foundation or makeup that I have, right, than somebody else would. So it makes more sense for me to just buy those as I need them than it does for me to get them on a 30-day or 60-day cadence. Similarly, when we're talking about things that maybe aren't necessarily we might not normally think about as a subscription when we're thinking about, say, like replacements. If you're selling an electronic toothbrush, maybe it doesn't really make sense to have a subscription around replacement heads for that, or electric razors, right? We're talking about replacement cartridges for an electric razor. Now, there are plenty of brands that do push subscriptions in those industries. But if you're running into a lot of headwinds, if you're running into some issues where you're giving away too much on the initial upfront offer, and then you're not able to keep somebody, you're kind of losing twice, then subscriptions might not be the best option for you. So one of my favorite interviews from the last couple of years was Ryan Rouse. We interviewed him at Sub Summit about a year and a half ago. And he talked about working in retail, especially brands that are both digitally and retail native, that they're operating in both places, that it's actually often not about the subscription. It's about how many purchases they're making inside of 3 months. They're looking at a repeat purchase rate. How many times are they coming back? And what's the right cadence for that? And so that's one of the things I kind of want to point out to you when we're talking about subscriptions, is sometimes it's important to take a step back and ignore those PE guys, those private equity guys that are telling you have to prioritize subscriptions, and look at what allows me to create a healthy business. If you can be first order profitable by selling 3 to 6 months supply of your product to somebody, but it doesn't make sense to push a subscription with that, then don't do it. Look at that first order profitability, because you can always build out your retention marketing of using email and SMS to get people to come back, of creating communities, of understanding like how people are using your product, and enabling those experiences. So subscriptions can be a part of that, but they don't have to be the focus, right? The focus should be at understanding why people are buying your product, how often they need to use it. On other episodes, we talked a lot about getting down the frequency and consumption. So if I'm trying to push a 30-day subscription, but most people are using my product over 45 days, it can often make more sense to do a 45-day subscription instead of 30. Now, I might not lock in revenue quite as quickly with some of those subscribers because I push that out a little bit. But the idea is, on the back end, I'm picking up a lot more. I'm keeping subscribers a lot longer than they would normally stay because they're not canceling because they have too much product. When we can align the consumption, when we can align what we're selling with the consumption, then we can find success in building up our business. Now, I kind of want to get into another question here, which is looking at businesses that are prioritizing subscription-only offers, right? Now, we've seen these come and go over the years. There's currently seeing a trend where this is coming back and kind of strength. And the idea is that people are landing on a page, they're getting offered a subscription-only offer, and then that's it. Now, the problem with that is a lot of people are maybe confused or upset, or they go cancel right away. They're willing to take that offer, but they cancel it, or they're annoyed that they have a subscription and then they cancel it. And so the question here is, when we're evaluating a subscription program, we should be evaluating from the beginning. So we're looking at our average revenue per site visitor when we're looking at revenue that the store is generating, and we're also looking at the lifetime value of people that purchase from us. Okay, so we're talking about how much money we're generating for our business. Okay, so on a given month, we're going to have repeat subscribers that are generating revenue. We're going to have people that are coming into the business that are new, that are generating revenue for the business. So when we're evaluating this, we want to look at, okay, on a given day, given week, given month, how many people are we converting? What does that conversion number look like? What does the average order value of those people look like? And that's going to give us an average revenue that we're generating per person. Now, the opportunity with a subscription-only offer is that we're essentially locking in a lot of those people into a subscription. The problem is that subscription-only offers generally have higher churn rates because of that. So there's a trade-off. When we're looking at how we're bringing people in, there's a trade-off with a value that we're able to capture from them. So something you should be testing is looking at what my conversion rate is and my average revenue generated per visitor when I have a subscription-only offer versus when I have a one-time purchase option that's available there as well. I've seen them work on both ways. I've seen subscription-only offers have a better opt-in rate, a better conversion rate when you add the one-time option. And I've seen them be neutral, okay? The point that we're getting at is what is then the lifetime value of people as they come in? Because if I'm forcing people onto a subscription, I'm losing more people. Maybe I'm better off with having the one-time purchase option available because my conversion rate is going up, and that is actually still preserving lifetime value, if not doing a little bit better, because the only people that are taking a subscription are the people that know they have it. I do think some of the downsides with a subscription only offer is that you do run into some resistance with people that don't like that. Whereas if they buy one time, I can opt them into flows that will get them to come back for a second purchase or for a subscription offer in the future. This is where it is tricky. We're trying to evaluate, looking at all these different ways that we can create these offers. Another example I want to bring up is driving really high initial AOV. Some of the brands out there that are doing this exceptionally well right now, and one I like to talk about periodically is like Javi Coffee. All right, if you look at, they have a beautiful PDP, they're getting people to buy a lot, there's offers or incentives to buy a lot. The problem here is wondering, okay, if I'm getting somebody to buy, say, spend $150 with me, when are they going to come back? Because they bought 3, 4, 5, 6 months maybe worth of product from me for that $150. Whereas if I get somebody to buy 100, can I get them to come back for a second purchase sooner than the 150? Right? So that's where lifetime value comes in. So we're trying to balance out the revenue we're generating per customer. Past episodes, we've talked a ton about North Star metrics, understanding your data, getting really deep into knowing the value of your customers. And that's because we're trying to evaluate these decisions. What am I going to prioritize? Am I prioritizing conversion rate? Am I prioritizing subscription take rate? Am I prioritizing AOV? There's certainly offers that can do a good job of doing all of those when we're looking at like bulk option incentives that we talked about in the past. But it's difficult to make that just right. I do suggest that you can test these in a variety of ways. But for those of you that are wondering whether you have a subscription product or not, a subscription offering or not, you can evaluate all of those things in the same way, because subscriptions, again, are just a mechanism for enabling repeat purchases, right? Now, I know why they're popular. I work with them all day long, especially when we're looking at supplement brands, pet food brands, and others. It makes sense when we look at the data. Subscriber LTV cohorts are often 2 to 3 times higher than non-subscriber cohorts. That does not mean that every business is a subscription business. It means that for those businesses, they've evaluated a segment that is worth more to them. Another segment that isn't talked about a ton is when you look at people that have bought the product as a one-time option first or 2 times, and then they subscribe. Those people are often worth even more than your normal first order opt-in subscriber. And then when you layer on another segment, for those of you that are offering memberships, these are exclusive perks, priorities, special gifts, and other things. Members are often worth more than even subscribers. When you have somebody who subscribes and is a member, they are the most valuable of customers. But when we unpack all of this, it really is understanding what is motivating for the consumer and what is generating profit for your business. So as we're wrapping up this year and you're thinking about your business, you're thinking about what you've built so far, questioning how you should be prioritizing subscriptions or whether you should be doing subscriptions at all. And again, even if you have some private equity guy breathing over your shoulder telling you that you need to be doing this, or a board or other stakeholders, take a step back and start evaluating what is creating profit and cash for the business. Because the nice thing about bulk options, about higher AOV upfront, is that you can generate more cash right now for your business. And if you can do that in a way that has an effective conversion rate, then subscriptions might not be as compelling for you as they are for other businesses. And again, there are a lot of other ways to enable that, whether we're putting cards inside of inserts into the first shipment, whether we're leveraging postcards to people to get them to opt in, email, SMS. There are a lot of ways to sell subscriptions and repeat purchases. So don't think that it's all just one thing. And it's really easy to look at brands like AG1 and Rise and others that are prioritizing subscription-only offers that have grown to that based on that kind of success. But you need to figure out what works for your business. So if you have questions about whether subscriptions are right for you, if you're wondering about what tests you should be running to evaluate this, or if you just simply like to discuss some of the topics that have come up here, I highly recommend reaching out to me, scheduling a call with me and my team. We're happy to do this for free, to talk through some of these opportunities, or even perform an audit for you to kind of get deeper into what's possible or not. But the last thing I want to say is I just don't want anybody pushing subscriptions when it's not the right option for your business. And if you're wondering whether it is or not, you need to develop the right tests to evaluate that. For those of you that are new with us on your subscription journey, or for those of you that have been with us for a long time, I want to wish all of you a very happy and successful end of the year. And as you go into 2026, keep thinking about what's actually going to drive cash and profitability for your business. Subscriptions are often the answer, but they're not always. All right, that's it for this week's dose. Stay tuned to next week for another dose of Subscription Prescription.
That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe so that you can get notified when new episodes come out each week on Tuesdays.